Hey, it's been a while since I've done one of these. It's an honest look part 3. I recorded the first two kind of back to back, like one after the other, in a span of just 2 days. But since then, a lot has happened. Namely, the Nephilim Strain was released. This is my second book, and it's one that I am very proud of and that I am looking forward to talking more about. This is the second book in the Agents of Nightwatch series, and two down, several more to go. The first one being the Hellfire Brats, which I also have up here on my computer. I also started the Chronicles of Captain America series, which is another thing that I had been wanting to do for a while. It's going to be a while before I do the second episode of that, but once I do the second episode, I'm going to try making that kind of a weekly series. But I really want to make sure that I have everything that I'm going to need for the entire series, and that I read through everything at least once. That way I can kind of like tie it in as I go, similar to how I did the quintessential breakdown of quintessential quintuplets, which I also need to finish. I only got one video left in that. I've been debating on whether to wait on that OVA that's supposed to come out later this year. But yeah, without further ado, I don't know how many of these we're going to do today. Gonna at least do 2. We're not going to do the shipping video because of copyright. We're going to try getting through 4 videos today. We're going to try doing these 4 videos. An honest look at the Vytal Festival tournament, honest look at Ozpin, and an honest look at Villains Part 1 and Part 2. So the context for an honest look at the Vytal Festival tournament before I push play on this, Volume 5 was going on, let's see, 5 years ago. Yeah, December 23rd, 2017. So this was right at Christmas of 2017. Rooster Teeth always takes a break for the holidays. So RWBY Volume 5 was on break. I think it was on break for about 2-3 weeks. And I just wanted something to do. I wanted something to feel accomplished for the holiday before I did my Christmas stuff with my family. And that's where this video came from. It was something that I had on the back burner, something that I wanted to do since I started this Honest Look series. And this was just the best time to do it. I don't think I mentioned Volume 5 here at all, but we're gonna get right to it. And we start off on some Dragon Ball footage, some old school Dragon Ball footage. Every shonen action series has a tournament arc. There's good reason for this. Yeah. Just on a conceptual level, it allows writers to have tons of fights, introducing a ton of characters and establishing their personalities, abilities, and motivations without worrying about screwing with the story's pacing. So when RWBY had their tournament arc at the beginning of Volume 3, it was a golden opportunity. So, so far so good, actually. A major step up from the prior Honest Looks that we talked about in the last 2 videos. I would mix the music a little quieter. And this is mostly a YouTube thing. YouTube has changed the way that they kind of detect and process music since I did this video. The show had issues giving characters things to do, giving reasons for fight scenes, and establishing character motivations. And the writers kind of screwed it up. How? Well, as I give you reasons, I'm going to compare it to some better tournament arcs. Namely, the Chunin exams from Naruto, and the handful of tournament arcs sprinkled throughout the Dragon Ball series. I don't know why. I actually do know why. Because I distinctly remember this. Dragon Ball Super was going on at the same time as RWBY Volume 5. And Volume 4 and Volume 3 as well. But it was wrapping up around the same time that RWBY Volume 5 was going on, and I had gotten really into the Tournament of Power arc. I didn't really like Dragon Ball Super up to that point. It had its moments, but they were so few and far between. But there came a point in the Tournament of Power arc where I was like, oh, this is really cool, and then it just kept on being fucking cool. All the way up until the end with Goku and Frieza working against Jiren. And so that might actually be why I decided to do this when I did, instead of just being like, nah, I just won't do a video. Although I had a much better work ethic back in 2017, 2018. I tried to have a consistent upload schedule back then. No, far cry from what it is now. I know I could also use My Hero Academia, Yu Yu Hakusho, or Hunter x Hunter, but I'm more familiar with Naruto and Dragon Ball, and I think Naruto is just a better point of comparison. Yeah. I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho's tournament arcs. I know that they are very well acclaimed, but I'm not as familiar with those shows. For those of you who don't know, I did watch a lot of Yu Yu Hakusho way back in the day, but that was back when I was like 7 years old. I've tried to rewatch it a couple times, but that pacing, man, I can't get into it anymore. And I tried to read the manga. The manga's pacing is even worse than the anime's. Like, I just couldn't get into it. And Hunter x Hunter's pacing is even worse than Yu Yu Hakusho's. I shit you not, I dropped Hunter x Hunter after 13 episodes because it was 13 episodes, a whole season's worth of episodes, and nothing had happened. I don't care how good it gets. I don't care how peak it is when it gets good. I ain't sitting through that again. Sorry. By 13 episodes of Naruto, you are already halfway through the second arc. Especially since both the Chunin exams and the Vytal Festival tournament do lead to a bigger invasion. Yep. That is a very good point. Why are we doing this? The tournament in itself is a contest of skill, usually done for entertainment purposes. So, little red letter media with the problem one. This is a Naruto track now. We went from My Hero Academia track to a Naruto track. Budokai tournaments in Dragon Ball primarily exist to showcase the world's strongest warriors. The Chunin exams are probably the best tournament arc in this regard. That tournament exists as a formality to promote low-level Genin and mid-level Chunin. I love that about the Chunin exams. Hunter x Hunter also has this, though. I kind of know this mostly from cultural osmosis. This is also the same case in Hunter x Hunter, which I believe was doing its tournament arc around the same time as Naruto's in the manga. I know Hunter x Hunter came first, but only by a few years. And so by the time Hunter x Hunter got to its tournament arc, Naruto was almost certainly ongoing. I don't know. I haven't looked at like release dates on those chapters, but I'd imagine they're pretty close. Though, you know what? Anime, manga, shonen, battle series doesn't have a tournament arc, at least not a traditional tournament arc. One Piece. The closest thing One Piece has to a tournament arc is the gladiatorial stuff during the Dressrosa arc, which does take up like half that arc, so it's like 50 chapters. That's pretty long, but like, there's so many other things going on in that arc. And the tournament mostly existed to establish the Grand Fleet and also kind of bring back Sabo and kind of show what the Blackbeard pirates were. One Piece is dense. One Piece is a lot denser than a lot of people give it credit for. Although every One Piece fan acknowledges its density. It's just, you know, people who don't watch One Piece or don't read One Piece think that it's just all fluff and filler. It's like, nah, everything happens all at once. Thus preventing Great Shinobi Wars and allows them to gather info on potential threats. This all follows nicely with the war economy at the
They dropped that right after the Chunin exams, though.
There was a great war and it ended. To celebrate, the kingdoms get together to watch the next batch of heroes beat the snot out of each other.
The Vytal Festival tournament was designed to test the strengths of the kingdom's warriors.
And the huntsman representing kingdoms here runs counterintuitive to the fact that huntsmen don't have allegiance to the kingdoms, except in the case of the Atlesian specialist. But that's not as counterintuitive
Such
as
a
holding
weird
for this reason.
In a safe and friendly competitive environment.
In Naruto,
I like that cutaway.
people still died in the exams, but it was hand-waved as an occupational hazard. This is how all the bickering nations in Naruto keep from waging all-out war. The Vytal Festival, not so much. As I said, the huntsmen aren't actually directly tied to the kingdoms, and so to put it into perspective, this would be like we celebrated Armistice Day by getting together with all the nations involved in World War I and just having a tournament for shits and giggles. Oh, but also...
Honestly, better than what we would have. Like, imagine if instead of Russia invading Ukraine, they just sent, like, a real-world Zangief to fight, like, some random Ukrainian dude. Winner takes all. God. I think it was actually Movie Bob did a joke video about that. Like, way back in, like, 2006, 2007. Like, that era of YouTube. I want to say it was Bob Chipman had a video like, what if conflicts were settled in the same way as Street Fighter? It's an interesting concept. It's actually, there's historical precedent for it. Back in the day, when you would have two nations or two kingdoms, particularly if they were smaller kingdoms that couldn't really afford to win, or couldn't really afford to lose, but didn't have the manpower to win, or at least not the manpower to justify the cost of victory, they would send out a champion, the other kingdom would send out their champion, and they would settle battles on 1v1. David and Goliath is an example of that in the Bible, where Goliath was the Philistine champion, David was chosen to be Israel's champion, and David won.
Add that any negative emotions, like the ones that manifest during conflicts, may also bring in monsters capable of wiping out cities. Like exactly what happens. And that's the hamartia of this entire series. The Grimm simply have no effect on how Remnant is ran. Now that we've seen why the Vytal Festival would never happen in its current state, let's look at an even bigger issue. Problem 2. Why is anyone doing this? There are two things tournament arcs are really proficient at. Delivering action scenes and showing off characters.
That's Dragon Ball Super.
In any tournament fight, and you'll see this.
God, I haven't listened to the song in so long.
Either. Let's take a look at Goku. His entire characterization is built around him wanting to fight strong opponents. This characterization
Goku's such a good character.
The entire series of nearly every chapter.
Not a good person, I would argue, but he's a good character.
Argue that Goku could only have a story if there's a constant string of tournament arcs to push him. A tournament arc needs to have a driving force like this in order to work. If the characters don't care, we can't care. Let's look at Naruto again.
I don't know how hot of a take this is, but Ultra Instinct Omen better than fully mastered Ultra Instinct. Just, I love the look, the silver aura with the black hair still and the silver eyes, and just kind of that heat, that energy that's so condensed it's like liquid. I love that about Ultra Instinct Omen.
He wants to be the Hokage. The Chunin exams is a massive step he has to take in order to achieve that dream.
Does he though? I do not like the fact that Naruto is apparently a Genin up until the time he was Hokage. I like to think that he did skip the rank of Chunin and that he was Jonin during, like, the last Naruto the movie era. Like, that's just... 'cause that's what makes sense to me. It doesn't make any sense for him to still have the rank of Genin after everything he's done. Like, I don't care if that... Give him his fucking GED. Like, he doesn't have to take the high school classes to pass high school. Just give him whatever the Jonin equivalent to a GED is and call it a day.
It's also his first real opportunity to prove himself to the village that treated him like an outcast. And it's not just him. Look at some of these characters. Sasuke wants to push himself to the next level and get one step closer to catching up to Itachi. Sakura wants to prove that she does have a place in all this. Lee wants to prove that he can be an
the varying degrees of footage quality here. I must have ripped a lot of this from YouTube, I want to say. And also, I stretched it out to be full screen. I probably wouldn't do that anymore. I would just let it be in its original 4:3 ratio with the black bars.
exceptional ninja without having ninja magic. Hinata wants to improve herself,
like I did here,
crowd, and gain the respect of her crush. Neji wants to break,
which makes me think I did rip it from YouTube, and that was whoever put it on YouTube had it in the 16:9 aspect ratio, because I'm using 4:3 ratio here for these clips. It's probably just me getting it from the internet.
Free of the Hyuga stranglehold. Tenten wants to be the best. Shino, Kiba, Ino, and Choji all come from respected clans. Shikamaru doesn't care about the tournament and only participates because Ino dragged him into it, and quitting is more troublesome than it's worth. And then you got Gaara, who wants to satisfy his bloodlust and his team wants to keep him satisfied. That's 15 character motivations directly tied to this tournament, most of which can only be satisfied with this tournament. Ruby?
Artificially sped up footage, that's a trick I would continue to use to this day to make a longer clip fit into a shorter segment. But yeah, like the gist is that every character in Naruto has a reason to want to become a Chunin. Nobody in Ruby has a reason to want to win the Vytal Festival.
Not even one. I think the main problem is the prize. There's no prize for winning. There's no promotion, no reward, no money, no lifetime supply of Heat-Tap. None of the characters besides Penny have a reason to participate in the tournament except that there's a tournament, so might as well.
Yep.
And Penny's motive amounted to nothing because of her character death. Which brings me to problem 3. What do the characters gain? I said in a previous video that a good fight scene will have some sort of risk and reward to its fight. Right now, Dragon Ball Super has the biggest stakes ever. If Goku and his allies lose...
Yep, Tournament of Power was still ongoing. We didn't know how that was going to end. Though we all knew it was going to end with, you know, the universe still existing. Though I really like the way that Dragon Ball Super played it off, because by having, spoiler alert by the way, by having Android, I have no idea where that came from, Android 17 be the last man standing. No one saw that coming.
Their entire universe will be erased. Same goes for every other team, but once again, I have to focus on Naruto. More specifically, Lee versus Gaara. The ultimate
of course, the
talent. Lee has pushed himself.
The battle everyone always points to, because it's just that good.
Has to move to kill any average opponent. Lee overwhelms Gaara with his sheer physicality and forces Gaara to actually.
Another Naruto track, by the way. Man, I really wish I mixed it quieter, because I'm really scared I'm gonna get like a copyright claim, which actually happened on the last video. So someone claimed the music, even though it's not claimed on the original video I was watching, but it was claimed in my reaction. It makes no sense.
Actually strategize for once. Lee still loses as his body gives out and Gaara cripples him. Similarly, Hinata fights Neji and tries proving herself to him and the audience. Neji sees all her efforts as futile and beats her to a bloody pulp. Naruto takes these two losses as if they were his own and carries them with him to the next round where he fights Neji and later fights Gaara. But the Neji scene in particular ends with a poignant moment where Naruto reveals...
Nice pronunciation of the word poignant there. The poignant is one of those words that anytime I try to read it, like in a script, like here, I always fuck it up. Because it does not look the way it should. It just never, it's one of those words that just never looks right when it's written.
Academy graduation test numerous times because of the clone jutsu, and now shadow clones are a specialty. I don't really have anything to add to this as far as Ruby goes. The characters are never given a reason to care about any of this. The only ones that come close are Penny, who wants to use the tournament to convince her father to let her stay at Beacon, and Pyrrha, who's very competitive and can't bring herself to fail, especially after learning about the maidens.
Yep. Yeah, which is why Pyrrha versus Penny is a good fight. On top of having sequences animated by Monty.
Problem 4. The fight scenes. A good series can have any of this through
Ruby music now.
Something a tournament arc really has to deliver on is the fight scenes. Ruby is known for its fight scenes, so surely if nothing else it'd deliver on this. Ruby vs. Auburn is a completely incoherent mess. Not a single person working on this scene communicated with anyone else working on this scene. It leads to
a little presumptuous there, but the evidence shows.
bits, but you can seriously play these scenes in almost any order and it'd make just as much sense.
I think that is the sign of a poorly constructed action sequence, or like any like war arc or battle arc where you can just chop it up and remix it and still get kind of the same vibe. I would say is bad. And that's actually my biggest complaint with One Piece's Marineford War. Because before I got into One Piece, I had seen clips of stuff on YouTube, and I would like watch the clips as I was reading. I didn't know what order the Marineford War clips I had seen were in until I read the manga, and it was like not what I was expecting. Like it makes sense, but at the same time, like you could easily have this a lot of those scenes shuffled around, and it wouldn't change anything. Like, off the top of my head, I can't actually think of, like, did Kizaru attack first, or did Mihawk? I'm pretty sure it was Kizaru, but, like, it doesn't matter. Well, it does in some... Marineford is good. It's in my top, like, 6 favorite arcs in One Piece. I'm just saying that that's something that Marineford is kind of guilty of, that other arcs in One Piece aren't.
Ruby swinging at? Why is Reese just standing there? Why is Yang just standing there? Will someone please fix Arslan's foot? Juniper vs. Bronze is even worse, but for different reasons. They stopped the fight for over 20...
By the way, about the Arslan's foot, it was really funny. In the lead up to Volume 4, if you don't remember, or if you weren't there, in the lead up to Volume 4, they actually had special events for Volumes 1 through 3. They played them all in theaters. They played a month apart. I went to the Volume 1 premiere, the theatrical premiere, just for shits and giggles. I missed the Volume 2 one because I can't remember exactly why. Something came up or I was busy or something. Then Volume 3, I went to the theatrical premiere for that as well. They still hadn't fixed Arslan's foot, so seeing that on the big like theatrical screen was so funny. I actually cracked up laughing.
20 seconds to explain Nora's powers, which isn't as bad as Blake standing around for 30 seconds in Volume 5, but another big issue is that...
There's a mention of Volume 5, okay. That, and... Given how long Volume 5 is, that might have been the newest episode, too. In fact, let me see if I can kind of... Do some Detective Conan work here.
Reasons. They stopped the fight for over 20 seconds to explain Nora's powers, which isn't as bad as Blake.
Yep, different mic setup. I inserted that at the last minute. Yep, I had already recorded this video when that happened. So I timed this. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. This might actually be longer. So I was going to make... Because I think in the original script, I was like, that's the longest people have just sat around and faffed about in Ruby in the middle of an action scene. But no, it was... The king was dethroned after I had already recorded that.
Like standing around for 30 seconds in Volume 5, but another big issue is that it never feels like Juniper is being challenged. Yura could take on all 4 of these guys herself. Oh, Nora slams them all out of bounds in a single hit. Sunburst...
Clip together audio. Little too tightly there. Sounded like I said L instead of hell.
Indigo is a little bit better. There's a lot more background details that are much appreciated and some neat shots that tie together.
Ghost frames.
But some doesn't understand the simplest of strategic advantages. Come on! Neptune outflanked them and has the high ground. This should be easy. This
the high ground
existed to introduce Scarlet and Sage. Two
Yeah.
characters who haven't amounted to anything. And the fight is built around it.
And they were never seen again. Obviously they're in Volume 3. They're in like the finale and stuff, and they fight Graham along with everyone else. But they have not appeared since Volume 3. And they dedicated half of an episode to introducing them as if they're going to be important. Team Sun got top billing over Team Juniper in the opening. During the opening, it does the big circle wing thing where, like, Team Ruby, Team Sun, and Team Juniper, and then the bad guys. But the Team Sun doesn't do anything. Ever. Like, since Volume 3, Neptune's appeared twice. He was in Volume 6 for a minute. Hit on Ilya, and then he was in Volume 8 with Sun out in the desert.
A single stupid joke. Neptune being afraid of water, which, not gonna lie, did make me chuckle a bit. The next
it did.
We see is Mercury and Emerald kicking the crap out of Koko and Yasuhashi, which for me is a bit cathartic, but it suffers from a lot of the same choppy editing and nonsensical transitions that the Ruby vs. Auburn fight had. Then Penny mercilessly gives Russell a concussion and everyone cheers. Gee, good thing there isn't someone plotting to destroy Vale and...
Yeah, that's, I think that's also a Fat Man falling bit right there. I think I stole that joke from Fat Man.
Razorburn vs. Funky is a lot of fun for a pointless fight. It's built around music.
It is. I like it.
The story being stronger than
I like Flint. I like his vibe.
It was a smart fight. Rice would have just started it by freezing the ground and making Neon's impractical design useless. Yang vs. Mercury, like many of these fights, lacks any real tension because Yang has no reason to care. This is the first time they've actually interacted. Mercury knows what's going on, but Yang doesn't, so her getting screwed over doesn't land the same way it does with the final fight. Penny vs. Pura works. It's the highlight of the tournament. Build-up could have been way better.
I'm cycling through the same music. I'm pretty sure I already used this in this video.
At least do what Naruto did with Gaara and Sasuke and have it hyped up throughout the rest of the tournament as the show-stopping fight. But Pura and Penny being the only characters who even give a shit about the tournament goes so far into making the fight work. Even without the ticking time bomb of Cinder's plan about to happen.
Clip together audio again.
5. Do any of these characters matter? Short answer, no. Tournament arcs are generally used to introduce a slew of new characters. Naruto introduced Gaara's team, Lee and his team, Kabuto, Orochimaru, and gave characterizations to characters that had only made cameos up to that point. In Ruby, we get introduced to teams Auburn.
I love Naruto's side characters. They don't get a whole lot to do that's important. And that's because, like, the scope and scale of Naruto, even though it is, like, continent spanning and saving the world and stuff, it never takes the focus away from Naruto and Sasuke and that rivalry. And even a lot of the side characters, they either feed into one of those two characters or both of them in like Sakura's case. But that's why I think Naruto actually does benefit from some of the filler to flesh those characters out, because they are really good, fleshed out, well-rounded characters. They just don't get things to do. Like Hinata. I love Hinata. I love her motivation. I love her design. I love her cute crush on Naruto. I love her in Boruto. Every time I see a Boruto episode with her in it, she steals the show. But in the canon, she has a crush on Naruto. She sees Gaara murder a couple people. She gives Naruto ointment. She gets her ass kicked by Neji. She passes out before Naruto beats Neji. And then she makes a cameo to show off her post-time skip design. She's there when they're trying to get to Sasuke and Itachi. Doesn't really contribute much. And then she has her confession against Pain. Nearly dies. Fights some Zetsus. Fights some Ten Tails clones. And then like slaps some sense into Naruto. And then Naruto the Last happens and she gets a lot more development there. And of course Boruto. But like, and she's one of the ones that gets the most focus. Someone like Tenten, the swing at the academy has more screen time than Tenten. I know that's a meme. I don't actually know if that's accurate, but I think it is. I think someone actually ran the clock on that and found that out, and that's when it became a meme.
Auburn, Bronze, Indigo, the only half of Team Funky, CL, Winter, and Crow. That's 17 characters. 2 of them have nothing to do.
We did get the other half of Team Funky. I don't know their names, though. I think one is called Cobalt.
With the tournament plotline. One of them gets one scene and is never seen again. The rest get one fight each. Auburn and Funky...
They fucking lampshaded that in Volume 9, too. God damn it. They lampshaded the fact that CL Soleil has not shown up since Volume 3, despite 2 whole volumes in Atlas where she is supposedly from.
Funky also help out in the Battle of Beacon, but that's something more people should have done. But I digress. This isn't a video about the fall of Beacon. This is strictly about the tournament arc. All these teams feel like fodder. They only exist to give the characters someone to fight because it's a tournament arc, and a bare-bones shallow tournament arc at that.
Yep.
Most egregious is Team Bronze, because they were just pointless. At least with Sun vs. Indigo, it was the first time we saw Team Sun in action. You know, the team that got top billing in the opening over Team Juniper?
Yep, there it is.
I conceptually hate Indigo. They only exist because Rooster Teeth had to come up with a way to pinch more pennies out of the Indiegogo guys. It's like merchandising, but instead of action figures, we got...
Oh, that is like a 120p image. That might be the worst image quality I've had in any of these videos. It's just that picture right there.
A subpar action comedy. The biggest problem with the Vytal Festival is how
Yeah, Laser Team was pretty bad.
Connected everything is. Nothing in Volume 3 connects. It's all random non sequiturs, and the few times they do pretend to have a plot, they introduce elements in the worst way possible. The characters, plot, and action exist in completely different planes of reality. That's why the Vytal Festival is the worst tournament arc I have ever seen. I'm Mediocrity4.
Ooh.
Thanks for watching.
Do I stand by that? Yeah. Granted, haven't seen that many tournament arcs since. So, yeah, the Vytal Festival's pretty bad, just all around. Alright, let's jump into an honest look at Ozpin. I fucking photoshopped God, I can't even remember the name of this goddamn meme. Like the douchebag hat or something.
This has been one of my most anticipated honest looks ever since I threatened it on the Ruby podcast a while ago.
Different mic. Sounds like headset mic. Might have been crapping out at this time. And there's music, but the music is really quiet. I think I was still experimenting around with that because, you know, and the last one was way too loud. This one, it's too quiet. It needs to be louder.
I hope not to disappoint you, but everything I can say here I've already said in numerous podcasts, chats, and reviews. As I scrubbed
what did that say?
As I scrubbed through a lot of the old gear I've already said in numerous
Sorry, I'm being pedantic with this. God damn it, I looked away. This is a pretty accurate representation of how we're looking at this volume now. Yeah. When did this video come out? So it was about a month after the prior one. I don't think Volume 5 was over yet, but it must have been wrapping up.
Already said in numerous podcasts.
Okay. Oh man, me and my red suit, my Cheapify profile pic red suit. You know what really irks me about Ozpin? He apparently hid religion. Like, hid the entirety of religion. Well, no wonder the Grimm slaughter entire villages on a regular basis. Religion's entire function was to make people feel better and maintain order. He managed to hide entire religions. Wonder how many millions of people he had to outright murder to make that happen. Not only is this prospect frightening and makes it impossible to see Ozpin as a good guy, cough 1984 cough, but it's also logistically impossible. You'd think a world with literal manifestations of evil trying to wipe away humanity, there wouldn't be a whole lot of room for existential nihilism. Realistically, it'd be all the people who don't believe in something greater than themselves that would be rounded up into camps right alongside all the people who give off too many negative emotions. It's little things like this that keep RWBY from feeling real, and keep Remnant from feeling like a real place.
Chats and reviews. As I scrubbed
Me
through
circa
a lot of the
2017.
older volumes for footage, there's two things I realized.
Artificially
First
sped
thing
up
was,
footage.
wow, the writing was always kind of bad. Second thing was
Yeah.
that all the characters in RWBY are just less compelling versions of other characters. This is a symptom of the disease that is Monty, Miles, Carrie, and Gray's insistence on treating anime like a genre. Treating something as broad as anime like a specific genre pretty much forces characters into archetypes, and more often than not, they never escape. RWBY is Captain America by way of Maka Albarn. Weiss basically goes through the same motions as Doctor Strange sans hand injury. Blake has a lot in common with other tragic heroes who...
I don't think Doctor Strange is the best comparison for Weiss. Though I probably hadn't seen Little Witch Academia at this point. I think I watched that in 2018. And this was right at the beginning of 2018. So, I didn't have my girl Diana Cavendish to be my frame of reference for that kind of character done right. But yeah, Blake, there's a lot of similarities between Blake and Black Widow, especially in how I write them.
Who started off with the villains. Yang is basically Goku, though I think she's more like Gohan, especially since the most interesting thing about her is her relation to the other characters. While some of these comparisons might be a bit of a stretch, one that isn't is dear old Ozpin. Ozpin is just shitty Dumbledore. I could end the video there, but
shitty Dumbledore
looks to strike that mediocre balance.
Minute 15, and I already made my thesis statement. He's just shitty Dumbledore. Dumbledore's already kind of the shitty Dumbledore, so that's saying a lot. I like this little self-deprecating joke I have here. I remember this.
But I like these honest looks to strike that mediocre balance of overthinking and oversimplifying. So let's get pedantic on this Ponce. RWBY was a lot easier to follow when there was no magic involved. The abrupt appearance and reliance on magic is like if all of a sudden a show dedicated to glowy hand magic completely switched gears to have psychic ghost monsters with specific power sets instead. And yes, that was a JoJo reference. Ozpin...
They kind of just forget about Haman at a certain point. I've made this no secret. I'm not the biggest JoJo fan. I think part 1 is like passable. I think part 2 is actively bad. Part 3 has a lot of problems, particularly with pacing, but also just I fucking hate Dio. And not in the way you're supposed to hate Dio. I just, like... Let's compare him for a minute. God, I don't want to get on this tangent for too long. Doflamingo from One Piece is Dio done right. He's fun. He's actually charismatic. He kind of feels like he's in control, but he slowly loses control, and you actually see him react to his loss of control. And you see him, like, slowly lose his fucking mind to fucking crackhead Luffy destroying everything he spent decades building up over the course of a single day. Dio is just a retard. He's just really fucking dumb.
Was cursed by the God Brothers for failing to stop Salem. How he failed and how he's still the one with all the power even though he failed is beyond me. This isn't a speculation show. It's an opinion show. My opinion is that Ozpin with all the power even though he failed God Brothers for failing to stop Salem. how he failed and how he's still the one with all the power, even though he failed is beyond me. This isn't a
We did find out in Volume 6 that he kind of was dead during that very important moment in Salem's life.
speculation show. It's an opinion show. And my opinion is that Ozpin hasn't made a single rational decision the entire series. First off, the maidens. Ozpin gave these 4 women incredible power just for keeping him company while he sat around. That power also came with risks that ended up causing more trouble than they're worth. If he could set the rules on how maidens are transferred, why didn't he? If he couldn't, why not? Why does it transfer in this way, and why can this grim stuff forcefully extract it? And why have one of the key figures defending the maidens be the guy whose semblance is literally bad luck?
Yeah.
Rather ridiculous sounding out loud, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what Ozpin...
I forgot about that joke! I completely forgot about that. I forgot I did the Spanish flea thing in this video. I knew it was coming eventually. But I forgot it was in this video that I did the crow failure count. Let's run that back. Cause that's just fucking brilliant. Yeah. The most important character in Ozpin's whole grand plan to protect the maidens is the guy who has bad luck powers. And no wonder that he failed to save Amber. He got stabbed by Tyrion. That failed to find information at that bar in Volume 5. Dude threw a knife at him. Failed there. At trying to recruit huntsmen. Then that's the one with the kid. Volume 5, same episode, same scene, where he's looking for another huntress, I guess, and like her husband answers the door, and the kid's like, "Does he know where mommy is?" Like, oh god damn it. Then yeah, getting just ass blasted by Hazel. Getting ragdolled by Hazel multiple times. It's like, just every clash he has with Hazel is just a crow failure. I just wanted to time this out to be the to have this as the punchline. He failed to tap that ass, and man, now that we know what she actually looked like post kids, yeah, that 8 should be at a 90-degree angle.
I don't know what Ozpin was thinking when he decided to give a pair of bandit kids the ability to turn into birds. I also don't know why that's just something he can do. I offered an idea in a previous podcast that maybe he can do this with all his top lieutenants and he can't control what animal they can turn into. Crow and Raven can be birds because, of course. Lionheart can be a lion for obvious reasons. Ironwood could be a bear because that would be so freaking metal.
We didn't get Cyborg Bear James Ironwood, and I am salty about it.
And Glinda could be a horse because everyone wants a ride.
As helpful as...
I like that joke. I'm not going to apologize for anything. I will never apologize for a joke. Volume 5 is allergic to good ideas.
Unfortunately, it is not that simple.
It really looks like he only gave it to Crow and Raven because they happened to be on the same team as Summer Rose, a silver-eyed warrior. And they both had bird names, so that was reason enough to put that kind of pressure
that could be
on
it.
them.
We don't really know.
Here's the thing that really grinds my gears. He treats Salem like a huge, unstoppable threat, yet he has an entire army of huntsmen at his disposal. Hundreds of huntsmen, any one of them...
Pre-Volume 6. This point is a little moot. I still think that, like, just because someone is immortal doesn't mean that they're unstoppable. We've seen Salem get stopped already. Like that bomb, Ironwood's bomb, or no, it wasn't even Ironwood's bomb. It was Ozpin's cane. The power he had built up in that knocked her on her ass for about a day. Like you can totally restrain her, seal her away, lock her in a dimension, or just fucking play whack-a-mole with her. That's what Batman does with the Joker. Works out for him most of the time.
Capable of clearing out hordes of Grimm. And what does Salem have? Those same useless Grimm and like 3 decent fighters. And the only way Salem is able to get...
I was not expecting Watts to be as strong as he was. Still not that strong. Still like the weakest of the 4 like officers in Salem's crew, but no slouch. He went toe to toe with Ironwood just fine.
So much done isn't because of her own merits, but because she's slightly more competent than Ozpin. The school system,
yes.
kingdom structure, the CCT network, all of this was done under Ozpin's guidance. If he could make one relic hard to get, why not make them all hard to get? Why even hide them? Why not use them against the Grimm and as a way to make the people of Remnant feel safer? Why not use the maidens the same way My Hero Academia uses All Might? He calls the CCT network's fatal flaw poetic, and it bites him square in the ass. All it took was a single virus to put all the kingdoms at each other's throats. He buried relics in vaults under the schools, hoping that the sheer number of students would be able to defend them, yet when danger struck, most of the students ran. Not only that, but it's hard to defend
Ghost
something when you
frames.
don't even know you're supposed to be defending it.
What would this school need to hide?
And I haven't even gotten to how he needlessly puts all the characters' lives at risk. He knows full well that Jean forged his transcripts, yet he placed him as the leader of the
We
team
assume that he
against the
knows.
leading candidate.
That was an
He
assumption.
knows Ruby is probably the only silver-eyed warrior alive, and yet sends her on extremely risky...
Technically no, but for all intents and purposes, she is.
missions, and this is actually one of his better actions. I'm actually going to defend this particular instance. Ruby was going to get there one way or another.
We mail ourselves there.
So, best to at least give them a huntsman who knows exactly what's going on and why Team Ruby wanted to go there.
And a likely place for a hideout.
Precisely.
It's also implied that the only reason it was restricted from first years is because Ozpin didn't want any other team to sign up for it before Ruby got a chance. I mean, first years are the only ones there, so why would a mission off limits to first years be on the first year's mission board?
Would all first year students please report to the amphitheater?
Yeah, that's a bit of a plot hole, but one with a pretty nifty explanation. So that's my headcanon.
The transfer would actually work. Luckily, that's a possibility that doesn't even get answered because of Cinder. Cinder vaporizes him and he goes into Oscar. In layman's terms, he is a shitty Luke Skywalker. His first appearance does nothing. His second appearance establishes that Ozpin is in his head. His third appearance is him down.
One alteration I would make is that I would call back to my shitty Dumbledore joke from her, which is kind of what I was doing there, but I didn't deliver it the same way. I probably didn't even remember how I delivered that. It'd probably been 13 to 15 minutes in between those two line reads. But I was like, if Ozpin is a shitty Dumbledore, then Oscar is a shitty Luke Skywalker.
Outing Ozpin. His fourth appearance is him getting a ticket to Mistral. His final appearance in Volume 4 is him on the train. From there, he's just used to deliver exposition.
Yeah.
Much like his second and third appearance, character traits are brought up and never addressed again. And with only 1 month of training, he's able to hold his own against a headmaster even better than Crow of all people? Ozpin has a lot to answer for. I'm not going to say he should have stayed dead. There's too much ground that needed to be covered by his character post-Volume 3, and if that's Oscar's only role, then that's fine. Or at least it would be if there wasn't so much problematic stuff with his story. And that's the icing on the shit salad. Everything he's done has made Salem's job easier. People don't like being lied to. They especially don't like being lied to about things that would otherwise help. Hazel hates him because of how he treats huntsmen like tools. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff like that coming in the future. Ozpin is not a bad idea. He's just a bad character, and his badness is so self-evident that there's a prevailing theory that he may actually be the villain. I think that speaks volumes about.
I don't think that theory holds up.
Has been. I'm Mediocrity4. Thanks for watching.
Oh, that.
For watching.
That might have been the first ever appearance of Chibi Me. I can tell because it's got the gray background that Kitty uses when she's actually back then when she was still finalizing the designs. Probably wide zoomed in too. The below the neckline here probably wasn't done yet. She probably hadn't decided on like where the buttons would be placed or something. I don't know, but it was very clearly getting worked on it and almost finished, which is why the Ruby shipping video too. The shipping is the first time I use it in a thumbnail, but we're gonna skip that. How long have I been going? I've been going for about an hour. I could probably go for another hour. Depending on whether I want to do Was Ruby Volume 5 worth it? Because the answer is no. And this is just my volume. Did I do the... No, I didn't. See, I didn't do the Volume 4 review, so I don't think I'm going to do the Volume 5 review. So I'm going to skip that. If you want me to go back and do it, I'll do that. I'll do, like, the best volume in Ruby, then Was Volume 5 worth it? I'll do all the volume reviews all in, like, one go. I don't have my Volume 9 video in this playlist. I need to fix that. I think I said that last time, I never did. So yeah, we're skipping those two videos and we're jumping right into An Honest Look at Villains Part 1. Now, I'm not going to get into it, but these two videos were when my life was falling apart. I don't know if that's going to come across on these videos, but there was a massive gap between making like the Volume 5 video and then making these. Yeah. So this was January 2018. This would have been Valentine's Day, and this probably would have also been February. So, now let's look at Villains Part 1. May. So I didn't have any videos in March or April.
Ruby has a villain problem. Actually, that's not fair. Anime has a villain problem. Eastern storytelling has a villain problem. Contemporary storytelling has a villain problem. I really shouldn't have to tell you all this, but if 80% of TV from the last 10 years is any indication, I have to. A villain should oppose a hero. He should have a reason to.
Yeah. I do think that a lot of modern cinema and television have problems with creating compelling and interesting villains. Am I still recording? Okay, yeah, I am. Sorry, that looked like Audacity was lagging behind there for a second. There's a lot of videos talking about this, and they like to use Star Wars as the example, and so I will use Star Wars as the example too. Like, think of the villains in the original trilogy, or even the prequel trilogy. They're smart, sophisticated, calm, they're in control the entire time. Even when they're losing control, they're still acting like they are in control. You cut to the sequel trilogy, and everyone is screaming, "Traitor! I don't want you to win, I just want Kylo Ren to lose. I am all of the Sith!" It's obnoxious. And I just destroyed my voice doing that.
To oppose the hero. A good villain will have a goal and motivation just like a good hero. So considering that last year I came out with honest looks detailing the struggles the main characters have had, imagine the issues with the villains. For this video, I'm separating the characters associated with the Chaos Syndicate from the characters associated with the White Fang. That's right, this is going to be a two-parter, and I'm going to start at the top. Salem was introduced at the end of Volume 3 and has since sat in her castle delegating authority to her subordinates. Now, I don't have any problem with this on principle. There's still a lot of questions surrounding Salem. I mean, we can't even be sure she's not human. For all we know, she can't physically leave her castle, and that's why she needs followers. But there are two issues.
Yeah, not the case, though.
The first is something I complained about throughout Volume 5. She hasn't earned the level of fear all the older cast has for her. There's no reason why Raven, Oscar, and Crow are so filled with dread for her. She's got the Grimm, but the Grimm routinely get slaughtered by a bunch of kids. She has her subordinates, and look how that turned out. She has her own powers, but then why hasn't she actually succeeded? The only reason she's gotten as far as she has is because Ozpin is somehow even more incompetent.
I said that in my honest look at Ozpin.
All unique to Ruby. Salem's appearance and role in the story cheapens the other villains. Think of a show with a good villain cast. What?
Man, that edit aged poorly. Imagine a show with a great villain cast shows The Flash. I had just gotten into The Flash around this time, and I was making my way through season 2. I really liked the first 2.5 seasons of The Flash. And that is the only thing about The Flash I like. Well, he's got the rogues. I like the rogues in the comics. I like Captain Cold and Mirror Master and Weather Wizard and Trickster and Melter.
Do those shows have in common? All the villains have their own separate goals. Batman, Spider-Man, Captain America, Superman, they all have armies of villains lining up to take them down, but each one maintains their own autonomy. They all have their own reasons for fighting the hero. They all have their own worldviews. For a decent anime example, I turn your...
Yeah, that's what makes like villain team-ups so inherently interesting, and why they almost always end up going the same way, sadly. Which is that because they have their own motivations and stuff, they got that personality clash too. Now I'm actually experimenting a little bit with that with my Agents of Nightwatch series. I am building up a rogues gallery for the heroes to fight, and I'm looking forward to writing the scenes where those villains actually get to interact a little bit more.
Your attention to Naruto, where Pain's end goal with the Akatsuki was very different from Obito's and Madara's. And even when those goals were similar, they were selfish enough to where they all wanted to be at the top, but only one person could be top dog, and so Naruto's power of friendship triumphs over tyranny. In short, all these other villains don't matter because they're just following Salem, which brings us to Team Witch. Watts is the MVP so far in my book.
I forgot that they were kind of being referred to by Team Witch by the fandom. Watts, Tyrion, Cinder, Hazel. It fits. It really fits. And that might have been the intent. But I haven't heard anybody at Rooster Teeth refer to them as such. And Watts is the MVP. Watts proved himself in volumes 7 and 8 that he is the smartest man in the show.
Leave it to Chris Abbott to add some much needed dignity to the villain. I love how he's the only one who seems to realize how retarded Raven and Cinder were in the latter part of Volume 5. I'm just dreading Volume 6 inevitably doing something to make me not like him anymore.
Well, Volume 6 certainly didn't because he wasn't in that volume.
Tyrion is a lot of fun, but he's never going to rise above henchman status. Though his zealousness is a better reason to serve Salem than anyone else in the gang. He's just a lot of fun. The only real problem I have with him is that he tends to delve into Jared Leto Joker territory of cringiness. But that's chalked up to the direction, not the writers, and certainly not the actor. Hazel is kind of the...
More ghost frames. But yeah, Josh Grell's great. I love him.
The opposite. The direction on him is fine.
Although apparently he will not be returning as Tyrion going forward. Because he's like... Apparently he's like non-binary or something, and there's that controversy about trans jokes and older RT like skits and stuff, and one of their employees was trans and got offended by it, even though like they joined the company knowing full well they were making jokes like that. I don't know. I can't with cancel culture. Really sucks. Josh Grohl's a great actor. I think pretty much anyone can play Tyrion, but it's not going to be the same, and hopefully he reconsiders once the check clears.
Yeah, his screams sound a little generic.
It's Ra's al Ghul from Arkham City. I remember when that episode dropped, I was like, I've heard that scream before. Where have I heard that scream before? I was like racking my brain over it for like a month, being like, where the fuck have I heard that scream before? It's Ra's al Ghul in the Arkham City.
But that's a nitpick. He's got a cool design and a warm demeanor. His power set is really cool, even if it does just rip off Bane. Hey, if you're going to rip off a villain, might as well rip off a well-liked villain from the greatest rogues gallery in popular fiction, you know?
I don't actually like Bane. That's why I said, might as well rip off a well-liked villain. People like Bane. I don't really know why, but they do.
Just glad that they finally did something with the whole dust-infused skin thing they mentioned back in Volume 2. What sucks is his motivation.
They did. They set that up pretty well.
But it's just really thin. Ozpin, you got my sister killed by having her fight.
Okay, that setting it up pretty well is overstating it. They definitely planned it.
Grim, so I'm going to work with the person that controls the Grim and kill other huntsmen and children. I saved Cinder for last because she's a mainstay. She's the Darth Vader to Salem's Palpatine. One of the first moments in the entire series was the writers using her as a meter stick for what Ruby will one day be capable of and setting up a logical through line where Cinder and Ruby are rivals. And that just got put on ice. Cinder is an idiot. Her plan was convoluted and it only half worked. She was making it up on the fly, and before you try to counter-argument, Volume 3, Episode 5. Cinder discovers Spinny is a robot. Volume 3, Episode 9. Just a day later, she uses that fact as a major linchpin in her plan. There are hundreds of ways her plan could have flopped if Ozpin wasn't stupid. Lucky for her, he is. So like I said, the only virtue of the villains is that they don't suck as much as Ozpin. Then after Volume 3...
God, that tracks to this day. Cinder really needs her own video at this point. I will not do it until Ruby wraps up. But, no, having Cinder, probably like 4. Yeah, spending about a minute on Cinder doesn't really do her justice. I have quite a few issues with her, and I have a lot of those issues because I fucking love that archetype. I love the sorcerer and the dragon. If you don't know what the sorcerer and the dragon is, it's a medieval fantasy archetype where you have like a big bad who's like powerful and typically magical and is like the existential dread for the heroes and all their allies, as someone that the hero has to create allies in order to defeat. And then the dragon is the smaller, weaker, but more like formidable, more persistent threat. If you want a quintessential example of the sorcerer and the dragon, Palpatine and Vader in the original Star Wars. Palpatine's the big bad. He is the emperor of the evil empire. He is the most powerful space wizard alive in that time period. But Darth Vader's the one who gets shit done. Darth Vader's the one with, like, an actual connection to the heroes and a interplay with Luke and history with Ben Kenobi and all this other, like, emotional baggage and drama and pathos and the arc. And that's why, like, he's the one everyone kind of remembers and stuff, even though Palpatine is literally his boss. That's what they were going for with Cinder and Salem, and it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work for the same reason why Kylo Ren and Snoke doesn't work, and it's something that the early seasons of My Hero Academia, I think, did it the best with Shigaraki and All for One. That's just, it's just a common trope that I've seen a lot more and more over the past, 10 years.
3, every minute she's on screen is building up her rematch against Ruby. They make this the
and the rematch hasn't happened.
Cinder agreed to Raven's demand, but then they don't even do anything with it. Cinder and Ruby don't fight. They don't even talk to each other, and Cinder completely ignores her existence half the time. And Cinder's got a posse because it's not bad enough that her autonomy is taken away by Salem. She has to go and do the same to 2 other people. Mercury was a lot of fun when he...
In Cinder's defense, she earned a lot of that autonomy back in Volume 8. Once Salem got knocked on her... Actually, her disobeying Salem throughout Volume 7 and 8... and going off on her own little villain journey was great. It was great to see. It wasn't super well executed or well written or anything, but that's what characters like that need, and shows like this. They need that moment of no, the wizard is wrong. I'm the one who gets shit done.
Voiced by J.J. Castillo. I like Yuri Lowenthal just fine, but every time he talks or grunts, I will never not hear Sasuke, and it's distracting. There's not a lot of Mercury.
He does use the same voice. Yuri Lowenthal's a great voice actor, though.
People have been saying that Emerald...
I didn't really realize this until probably summer of 2018 when Camp started. Yuri Lowenthal's a good fucking voice actor. Oh no, I think Camp must have started in 2017. But yeah, Camp kind of gave me the first tease that oh, maybe there's more to Yuri Lowenthal than just playing Sasuke. And then he played Spider-Man. And he's one of the best.
Deserves redemption in full ignorance that Mercury was the one who lamented the White Fang's fate at the end of Volume 2. Gee, it's almost as if the writers are awful and don't know what they're doing half the time and have a hard time...
I called that one. Emerald is the one that ended up getting the redemption arc in Volume 8. It is going to be in Volume 10.
Remembering what they wrote. Speaking of Emerald, other than the lost puppy dog angle, she doesn't have any skin in this game. I like that she is more of a thief archetype as opposed to the murder, psychopath, idealistic criminal archetype these things tend to overly rely on. Emerald has always just been the least interesting villain up until they basically confirmed just how thirsty she is for Cinder. So, I sound mixed to positive, right? Well, that's how I feel about the villains in general. Mixed to positive. So what's the problem? Too many heroes, not enough villains. We've seen Cinder, Hazel, and Tyrion at their limits and beaten. We've seen now that they've been beaten by a bunch of freaking kids. These villains are supposed to be the thing of nightmares, the thing Salem has used to eliminate legendary huntsmen. Yet a couple kids who only attended
You can tell I'm having a lot better time watching these videos than last time because I'm not pausing as much to cringe at myself.
For a year are enough to take on so many of them. That's with the added support of Lionheart, Raven, and Vernal. Villains are only threatening when they're, well, a threat. Going back to Bane, I personally think Bane is a terrible character. He's boring, his motivation is thin, he's got the personality of a rock, yet seeing Batman punch his way through armies of thugs only to come across this luchador-looking mug and get his shit wrecked makes Bane seem 1,000 times cooler than he actually is. So scenes like this...
That was a direct reference to Nightfall. You don't remember or didn't actually read that comic book. Nightfall was the first big event where Bane was the main villain. He had been introduced a year earlier, but as a looming threat that Bane is coming. Nightfall was when he came. And he came all over all the Batman books for about a year and a half. But no, he broke all the prisoners out of Blackgate and Arkham Asylum, let them loose on Gotham, let Batman and all of his allies wear themselves thin and run out of stamina. Then when Batman is already exhausted, limping into his Batcave after fighting his entire Rose Gallery, then Bane jumps his ass and breaks his back. And then he takes over Gotham, but him taking over Gotham is him just sitting in a chair and saying, "Now I rule Gotham. I will continue to rule Gotham until a Beetleborg version of Batman beats my ass." That also happened in Nightfall. Fucking 90s comics.
This. And this.
Yep. Three of your heavy hitters.
Into a boring waste of time, and without the motivation to compensate for their lack of power, none of these villains leave any real impact. All these villains probably have tragic backstories or something, but that's all just conjecture. Thinking about it, Ruby has awfully written and conceived villains, but
yeah, Cinder's backstory is pretty fucked. Like, they were one, like, edgy pitch away from having Cinder be a sex slave. They were that close with how fucked out the fucking collar shot, like she's a dog. Just, it makes me so mad in the good way. Like, fucking, I actually really like Cinder's backstory. It was something that was, like, predictable because Cinderella, that's who she's named after, so we can kind of draw conjecture from that to assume that it was pretty fucked, and it was. Man, just, no wonder she wants to just watch everything burn and die.
But what doesn't these days? For what it's worth, I've been more interested in Salem than I ever was for Juha Bach or even All for One. Hey, don't misconstrue me because Shigaraki is everything I ever wanted Cinder to be, and more, and the last couple arcs of the manga have forced him out of his master's shadow. Maybe Cinder will go through a...
Yeah, that was the My Villain Academia arc that was going on at that time, which is, sadly, the second and last arc I read before I ended up stopping and being like, I'm gonna wait till this is over to read anymore.
Similar situation. Maybe they're doing that with Emerald and forcing her to find some autonomy. As I write this, I'm more interested in the villains as characters than I am in the villains as, well, villains. Volume 5 just soured the whole ordeal. They're not
it really did.
And all this pomp and circumstance and contrived dread just wears on me and pisses me off. And nowhere is that more clear than the other half of the villain lineup. I'm Mediocrity4. Join me next time when I rant about the White Fang.
Yeah. They tried to overcompensate on some of that in Volume 6, 7, and 8 by letting the villains tear shit up a lot more. But, it doesn't come off as genuine because of how awfully bad the villains were treated in Volume 5. And that's why a lot of people are like, oh, the Volume 7 and 8 is just dumb because, like, the villains are not like what they were before. But what they were before was so much worse. So, yeah, last video I'm going to watch today. And I'm already starting to lose my voice. An honest look at the White Fang. Released in July of 2018. Another 2 months in between this and part 1. I cordially dislike allegory and all its manifestations, and always have since I grew old, and wary enough to detect its presence. I'm a terrible proofreader. J.R.R. Tolkien.
Allegory is something you have to be extremely careful of as a writer. Injecting real-world issues into your fantasy series is a good way to make the story feel more real and important, but one slip up and you're left with a painfully incoherent mess of a thing. Is it any wonder that the actual socio-political structure of the Empire is never discussed in the original Star Wars trilogy? It's because all you need to know is that the Empire were the oppressive authoritarian dictators who'd willingly blow up a planet to get what they want. And one of the many failures of The Last Jedi is trying to have the First Order be an allegory for the modern-day alt-right, a term used to describe...
Yeah. This one's going to be a little more politically charged. So, let's run that back. Because, little unpack there. Choosing a white guy over a black guy is racist. Choosing a black guy over a white guy is called affirmative action. Man, that holds up very well, because affirmative action just got shit canned by my boy Clarence Thomas. Yeah, affirmative action is racist. It's racism by low expectations. I can go on and on about that. I've ranted enough about it on Twitter. But just look at the way that people treat Clarence Thomas if you don't believe that affirmative action did more harm to the African American community than good.
Writer. Injecting real-world issues into your
District
fantasy
9.
series is a good way to make the story feel more real and important, but one slip-up and you're left with a painfully
Detroit Become Human
incoherent
is
mess of a thing.
awful.
Is it any wonder that the actual socio-political structure of the Empire is never discussed in the original Star Wars trilogy? It's because all you need to know is that the Empire were the oppressive authoritarian dictators who'd willingly blow up a planet to get what they want. And one of the many failures of The Last Jedi is trying to have the First Order be an allegory for the modern-day alt-right, a term used to describe anyone who disagrees with CNN, which actually means the same libertarian-minded anti-authoritarians that the original Star
Rageaholic and the Razor Fist and then Rand Paul.
Wars trilogy spoke to. In layman's terms, Rian Johnson wants you to believe that you should just listen and blindly trust authority no matter how stupid they sound just because they're in charge and, oh yeah, also women. So then it was a big mistake.
Yeah, that's a big fuck up on The Last Jedi's part. Be a rebel, hashtag resist! Unless it's a woman! With purple hair!
For the creators of RWBY to make the first big baddies in their fantasy show an allegory for race issues. I'll try to keep most of the video focused on the individual characters associated with that plotline, but I need to say a few things first and discuss what the White Fang as a whole represent. RWBY started in 2013, and for the last half-century, the go-to guide for this kind of racial allegory was the civil rights movement of the 1960s, namely the dynamic of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. This brand of allegory was popularized by X-Men, and it's what RWBY seemed to be going for. Then 2014 happened. This might sound conspiratorial, but the Ferguson riots that happened after one Michael Brown was shot by a cop led to the current Black Lives Matter movement and made this kind of allegory unfavorable. This is because Black Lives Matter...
I don't know if the timeline is totally accurate, but I do know that I had never heard of the Black Lives Matter movement until after the Michael Brown situation, which, just a reminder, I'm from St. Louis. I lived through the Michael Brown riots. I was there.
Matter tends to follow Malcolm X's example, and Malcolm X was the real-life Magneto of the civil rights movement. You'd think this would be a non-issue, except the media, and by extension the left, and by
close
extension
enough,
the key figures in Rooster Teeth, agree with Black Lives Matter. And again, my tinfoil hat is really tight on
Yeah, Miles went to bat for Antifa, which, like, if you think Black Lives Matter, I've said this before, I'm very sympathetic towards the Black Lives Matter movement. I said this in, it would have been part 2 of the series when we went to Blake. Very sympathetic towards the Black Lives Matter movement. Yes, all lives matter, yada yada yada. I don't care. Black people have been unfairly marginalized throughout American history. That's more of an American thing than a global thing. Like, slavery was a global issue. That was a human problem. Every single race under the yellow sun, and a couple that even aren't under the yellow sun, have been victims of slavery and have perpetuated slavery. Who do you think the French and the British got their slaves from in the first place? They got it from African warlords going to war against their neighboring tribes and enslaving their own fucking people. It was a humanitarian issue, globally. America was a little different because we had this thing called the Declaration of Independence, and we had this thing called the Constitution, where we had enshrined the idea of God-given rights and the idea that all men are created equal. So, how do we rationalize the idea that all men are created equal with the idea of slavery? Well, we treat the slaves as less than people. American slavery was far more race-based than any other slave system or industry at that time, and it continued to be so, and continued to persevere long after Europe had started to outlaw slavery on their continent, and on the African continent as well, within their territories. There's actually a movie out recently called The Woman King, which is some very bad historical revisionism that takes the side of the actual slave drivers that were trying to stop the British from outlawing slavery. Not a good look on anybody involved in that movie's part. But that was this really stupid excuse that a lot of Americans in the South used to continue and perpetuate slavery. And I've argued that Reconstruction and Jim Crow did far worse damage to the African American people than slavery did, because again, slavery that's something that we've all had to deal with in our history. I'm sure I'm like Scottish, Irish, and German. I've probably had a couple slaves in my family tree before, particularly on the Irish side of things. But we've never had that level of segregation elsewhere in the world. That's kind of an American-only problem. I digress. I'm probably going to cut part of that out. But yeah, I'm very sympathetic towards the Black Lives Matter movement. Not sympathetic at all to Antifa. Is it anti-fascist in name only?
This one, but I think that's why the White Fang went from being the Brotherhood of Mutants to ISIS. They could have been genuinely sympathetic, just like Malcolm X, Magneto, and yes, Black Lives Matter, but instead they became a generic terrorist organization that just...
See, and that's not just me sugarcoating. That was my opinion back in 2018. That was my opinion back in 2014 when all this shit started. That's my opinion now. I've been completely unchanged in my sympathy towards that movement. Don't agree with a lot of their actions, just like I don't agree with a lot of Malcolm X's actions. I also don't agree with a lot of what Lincoln did, but freeing the slaves was... Well, he didn't really free the slaves, but I'm not going to get into that either.
Malcolm X, Magneto, and yes...
Video shows Sacramento police shooting unarmed black man in grandparents' backyard. See, this is actually worth getting pissed over. Yeah, shit like this happens. Like, not all cops are bad cops, but there are bad cops. There's one in my book. Ooh, that might be a spoiler. There's a good cop in my book too. The kind of how I play things. There's always good and bad people in every organization I write about.
Black Lives Matter, but instead they became a generic terrorist organization that just so happens to fight for faunus rights. Which doesn't make any sense for numerous plot reasons that have been covered in other videos on my channel. The White Fang plot is pretty dumb throughout the series. The dust robbery plot goes nowhere, the breach gets widely retconned, all of their plans revolve around letting Grimm into places even though Grimm attack faunus just like they do humans, and we're never really shown the oppression they're supposedly suffering. Blake was fine with them executing board members.
I've watched family friends disappear. Board members executed.
But stealing from a train crossed the line. But she also thinks that robbing a couple dust shops is too big for them and is surprised when she catches them doing basically the exact same thing she did in the Black trailer, but with a human. Racist. And that's as good a place as any to start getting into the individual characters. Roman Torchwick is someone I just don't have many thoughts on. He's clever, dashing, and a load of fun. Gray Haddock does an amazing job voicing him.
Yeah, he did.
Doesn't care about...
God. Yeah, there's been some shakeups on that since then.
Tate tearing sociopathic delight with Watt's sophistication and wit, and then do both things right, and you got a good idea of what Torchwick is like. He's far and away the best villain the series has ever had. I like how adaptable he is. Volume 2 made him indispensable to Cinder's plan, whatever the original plan was. He's only foiled because the heroes, namely Ruby, are being proactive. He gets arrested, but his part in Volume 3 didn't really need him to be arrested. There are some contrivances with him, but they almost always lead to tension and thematically appropriate demises. Unlike Watts or Salem, there's no real chance to ruin him the way they did Cinder and Adam. I even like his death because he wouldn't have died if not for Ruby's
I love the scene with Volume 9 with Neo creating the Torchwick construct.
tenacity. Plus, he was killed by the very thing he was trying to manipulate to save his life, and I always like dramatic irony like that.
Cheat and survive!
And every Torchwick action figure should come packaged with Neo. Neo doesn't have
It's a
much
Batman
of
and Robin
a
reference of all
design
things.
and delightful demeanor, and 2 of the best looking fight scenes under her belt. She'll be back anytime the writers need another villain to knock some skulls in. And that's all for the positivity in this video, because the rest of the villains in the White Fang are a freaking joke. All the other White Fang members in the first 3 volumes are just mindless thugs that Team Ruby beats and mercilessly kill. This just raises further questions like, why does the White Fang have an endless amount of goons? Why hasn't a Huntsman taken down the entire organization if this is what 4 first years can do? Why is any of this happening? And things get worse for them in volumes 4 and 5. Finnick and Cossack Albane started off interesting, but it just further
I
cemented my
completely
theory that
forgot
the
their
writers were
names.
moving away from the Black Panthers and towards the Taliban. Which, a group fighting against racism is not the same thing as religious zealots trying to purge the world of infidels. The two just don't mix. And the Albane's planning to help Adam take over a menagerie, I guess. They throw Ilya under the bus when her scroll implements them in Adam's plan, and then they pin all the problems on Adam so he becomes Al-Qaeda and Sienna Khan becomes the Malcolm X allegory, which just doesn't work on any level. And then after the coup, when Adam takes over, they try pinning it on the Huntsman, which goes nowhere. Then they get the bright idea to assassinate the former leader, someone who just wants equality. If Adam and the Albanes weren't so stupid, they could have just taken over the White Fang and blew up Haven Academy without Blake or Gira ever knowing that was ever part of the plan. By the way, why did Ilya have the plan on her scroll? Why did it materialize in her hand during the rooftop scene?
So, I don't know why this got cut off, but something got cut off here. That are actually working for Adam. Blake reveals herself to them despite her entire reason for going home being that she wanted to avoid the White Fang. So Sun finds out something fishy is going on, but Blake is apparently bipolar, and she throws his scroll, and it just so happens to hit Ilya. They give chase. Ilya throws up a smoke screen, but then just stands there. Her scroll materializes in her hand, and Blake gets it. It just so happens to have the entire plan for Volume 5 on it. Gira, Blake, and Sun try and fail to garner support for a menagerie, but they don't have any success. The Albanes throw Ilya under the bus, Adam assassinates Sienna Khan, and once Gira out of the way, they try to assassinate him themselves, which shows the faunus that what happens to Mistral affects the menagerie because it's a shittier version of the...
There's nothing to say about Ilya that I haven't said before. At least her backstory gives her a reason to join the White Fang, and no, I still don't buy her abrupt face turn. I don't care how thirsty she is for Blake's Bella Booty.
Yep.
No one goes from fine with killing Sienna Khan.
By the way, just... I'm in Bumblebee neutral and stuff, but like... Well, one thing that gets my goat is that Ilya's entire motivation is that she wants to fuck Blake. Which is gross, by the way. Especially when you consider that, how old is Ilya? She hasn't aged since the Adam character short, which takes place at least 5 years before Volume 1. So she's possibly in her late 20s. And how old was Blake at that time? It's just, I don't like it when characters' motivations are just horny on main for a character. I just find it very distasteful. But it is extra hilarious now that Blake is confirmed bi and is banging Yang because like just it's not that Ilya was simping for someone who was just straight and in a straight relationship with a dude. It's that fuck Ilya, I guess.
Gira Belladonna to helping Blake save Haven off screen just because Gira didn't let her die.
Yeah.
Sienna Khan was a waste. They built her up for years, retconned this dude so he could be a hot Indian chick instead. They got Monica Rial to voice her, spent a long time designing her, making her look as striking as possible, and then they did to her what The Last Jedi did to the Star Wars fandom.
Yeah. God, that hurt. I love that clip.
Just before talking about
I don't think I have a copy of that clip on this computer.
Arc, the same way Cinder was
Otherwise, I'd use it
Ruby's
more.
main villain until the writers conceded to dumb fans and had her focus on Jean instead. I like that he could be the villain Team Ruby unite against. Blake soloed Torchwick. Ruby's main rivalry is with Cinder. Yang and Weiss have Mercury and Emerald. Adam is the thing Blake is running from, but he's also...
Weiss has never fought Emerald. The openings are a lie.
The source of Weiss' feelings towards the White Fang. He also chopped Yang's arm off and has a similar make the world a better place disposition as Ruby, as well as a similar symbol and color scheme. He had a really cool, if a little bit edgelordy design. His voice actor was awful, but he was more what we'd expect from a project like Ruby. We expected line delivery like this.
Perfect. Move up to the next car.
But that ended up being the exception instead of the rule.
And I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
Yeah, it fits.
Humanity pay for what they've done.
I was merely trying to follow your example.
Yeah, what I was saying earlier, like I think an hour ago now, we're like, yeah, there's a villain problem. 30 minutes ago, we're like, yeah, there's a modern villain problem where just villains are in control of their emotions. Like they're rash, they shout everything, they're melodramatic. Like Adam sucks for a lot of the same reasons that Kylo Ren sucks.
The first two volumes sort of built him up as a big bad in the future. I won't claim the show did a good job at this, but they didn't screw it up either.
That comes later.
The problem came in Volume 3. Instead of...
Excellent use of that. Like, they at least didn't screw him up in Volume 3. That comes later.
Portraying the White Fang and by extension Adam as a misguided civil rights group, they turned them into generically evil terrorists who destroy one of only 4 schools that train the only people that save everyone.
How many times can I make the same point in this video?
Destroying a Huntsman Academy won't make anything better. The academies aren't tied to the kingdoms. They're the only ones protecting everybody, including the Faunus. But I think they did this because they didn't want to make the villains sympathetic and they didn't want to paint their preferred politics in a negative light. This is where they really bungled the whole idea of the White Fang as an illusion.
Yeah.
Instead of making Adam a freedom fighter striking out against oppression, they made him an egocentric nutcase who goes off the
Adam should have been like Stain from My Hero Academia. I can't comprehend why the White Fang would ever want to fuck with the Huntsman. Like, they should try to, like, appeal. Like, I could see why the Huntsman would interfere and then the White Fang have to fight the Huntsman or, like, defend their own operations or whatever. But, like, that should be the source of conflict between them. The White Fang think that they're in the right, think that the Huntsman should be on their side, but then the Huntsmen aren't because the Huntsmen prefer to, like, protect these people, and then that creates the conflict. Like, just it practically writes itself, man.
Deep end after his girlfriend dumps him.
Because all I want is you, Blake.
Instead of making his conflict with Blake, well, conflicting, they made him an absolute abusive creep. And instead of making him a competent leader, they made him this.
I am making humanity pay for
How many times can I use this clip?
One good thing they did with him was cutting Yang's...
Yeah, like I said with Ilya, when a character's motivation is just, I want to fuck this teenager, ugh, no thank you.
Arm off. Shane Newville's letter complained that there was supposed to be a big epic fight scene, but this is better. It's shocking in all the right ways. It cements Adam as a major threat and sets up the best parts of Volume 4. It also establishes...
And they were able to co-opt that animation for Volume 6.
...that if your aura can't take the hit, well, it can't take the hit. It's also one of the prettiest scenes in the whole show. Very well done. He isn't really in Volume 4, so when he comes back in Volume 5 looking like... an over-designed Final Fantasy character. Seriously, what was wrong with his old outfit?
I've seen so many worse Final Fantasy characters though.
They already had it modeled in the new engine for Volume 4. This change is pointless and a downgrade, just like his plan. Overthrow the White Fang, blow up the most powerful institution ran by a Faunus, but I guess since the same Faunus was in on it, it's okay. This would be like if a civil rights group burned down a majority black neighborhood because the first black president condoned them. But who would... Oh...
Yeah, that really happened. Black Lives Matter, more so Antifa, burned down a majority black neighborhood after the black president said it was okay. Said that they were in the right or had a right to be mad.
You know, the African American community is not just making this up.
He puts his hands up like this, and the cop continued to fire until he just dropped down to the ground.
Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes art...
Forensic evidence supported the cop who shot Michael Brown. He was shooting in self-defense.
Imitates life a little too well. The rest of my problems with Adam can be summed up as such.
Yeah.
Adam gets so wasted in Volume 5. No one came out of Volume 5 unscathed by shitty writing.
This has some really fucking good clips. Julia, I don't even remember what movie that's from. I think that's from like one of the Scary Movies or something. I don't know, but like that clip is fucking gold.
But no character suffered more than Raven.
I am.
But a close second would be Cinder.
You?
Okay, but a third would probably be Ruby.
And I know the only reason we were able to do it is because we didn't do it alone.
Oscar? No, he was always dumb.
How are you okay with any of this?
Yeah, Volume 5 sucked for everyone, and this moment embodies every single thing wrong.
That moment when Adam is barely in the top 5 most fucked over characters in Volume 5.
With Volume 5. No more dramatic tension, no more White Fang as a nuisance.
Those in the White Fang that followed him won't support a leader that abandons his people.
No more stakes, no more conflict, no more growth, and perhaps that's the greatest failure of the show. By trying to pander to the people who wanted Adam to suffer, the entire series suffered. That seems to be a running theme with these villains. Maybe things will get better, but don't hold your breath. I'm Mediocrity4, thanks for watching.
They did get better. For the most part. Yeah. I had a lot of fun with this one. A lot more fun than the prior parts. Next time we'll get through the Juniper stuff because there's 4 videos in that. Jean, Pyrrha, Ren and Nora, and then the missing piece of Juniper's arc, which I think I remember what the point of that video was, but we'll get to that next time. I'm Mediocrity4 /EM Allen. Thank you for watching.